only do 99 minutes delivery. It's actually, fun fact there, less than 1% of our deliveries is now done under 99 minutes. And
It's
now
not an easy task. What has the region taught you that no MBA case study could ever teach in terms of building a business and creating a successful
across the board, right? From how you communicate with your clients, how you operate with your clients. A lot of communication is based on WhatsApp and Excel instead of software as a service or more organized ways of working that would probably benefit all of us. And then we realized that maybe delivering in 10 minutes is not super important for everything.
What you said is really interesting. In the last 36 months, we saw this avalanche of Asian cross-border e-commerce players, Shein, Temu. How did that impact local e-commerce? What's happening right now in Latin America?
Well, so it's very interesting adoption in a segment which maybe wasn't adopting e-commerce at such a faster rate, because these companies usually sell to a different type of customer than the Amazons, Mercado Libres. So I think that accelerated that mid-layer or low layer of the population. Was a big shock to the logistics world. We saw at least 7 or 8 large companies disappear. Redback pretty much shut down their doors. Cargado, iBoy, a lot of companies that used to hold or at least some decent share in the local market shut down.
Scaling last mile operations in the region has been one of the most challenging aspects for any company, not only in Latin America, but globally. And we have a really fascinating company today, which is 99minutos. This company has created an extraordinary value proposition for last mile delivery in the region. And we want to talk about the story behind that success. We have Santiago Saviñón. So I'd like to start a conversation asking you, what's the value proposition that 99minutos offers today in Latin America?
Thank you, Diego. Thanks for inviting me, and big fan of LatAm Unboxed, so happy to be here.
Thank
And to give you a brief overview of what we do and a bit of our history, 99minutos started off as a last mile delivery company based in Mexico. We grew within Mexico in terms of coverage, and we started launching other services. And then we expanded into Chile, Colombia, Peru, and in the next couple of months, Argentina. Our value proposition has changed in the last 11 years. We started off with this proposal of very fast 99 minutes delivery, and that's where the name comes from. But eventually the market has taken us to other places, and obviously you have to listen to the market. So we've started verticalizing a lot in the supply chain. And right now, I think our biggest value proposition is the fact that we're an integrated player within a very complex supply chain, in which last mile delivery is obviously a big part of what we do, but we've integrated other services, including fulfillment, freight, now cross-border for parcels as well, and what we call tailor-made operations, which is basically ad hoc projects made for different industries. We don't only do parcel delivery. We don't only do 99 minutes delivery. It's actually, fun fact there, less than 1% of our deliveries is now done under 99 minutes. And now we've expanded it to national or international parcel delivery.
What you just said brought me to the space where many disruptions that take place start with a business idea and then they evolve dramatically across the spectrum. So you started with the 99 minutes promised of last mile delivery, and now you have evolved in so many different aspects, but always being part of the supply chain and the logistics. Now, if I go back to something that is very personal linked to the business, which is creating and expanding a business in Latin America is not an easy task. What has the region taught you that no MBA case study could ever teach in terms of building a business and creating a successful business in Latin America?
First of all, I'd say that overcoming the lack of infrastructure to deliver great services and to comply with your service promise, mostly because not only physical infrastructure regarding roads and stuff like that, but permits you need to operate and to do it fast and to grow exponentially without stepping over any important lines, as well as everything that's you need to improvise to overcome, like, yesterday, for example, in Mexico, crazy traffic, even more than usual because of huge roadblocks from teachers syndicate, right? So that springs up overnight, and obviously you have to adapt and see how you can. Some clients understand that it's a problem that goes out of your hands, but you need to have reaction plans to many different situations that I think more developed countries or regions maybe don't have as often. So that's something that's really noticeable in Latin America, and overall in all the countries where we operate, we face those same challenges, as well as informality across the board, right? From how you communicate with your clients, how you operate with your clients. A lot of communication is based on WhatsApp and Excel instead of software as a service or more organized ways of working that would probably benefit all of us, but we're stuck in our ways in many different aspects. And obviously, corruption also plays a big part of it, right? It's not a level playing field. You sometimes deal with people or different elements of the supply chain, which act as deterrents if you don't play ball with them. And for
And what do
companies
you
like
mean by that?
us,
What do you mean by that?
if
Because I think that's a really
yeah,
interesting area that we can discuss. Many people talk about corruption, but without giving a specific examples, what have you experienced on that aspect in Latin America that you say it's not a
yeah.
level playing field for everyone?
Well, it's very common to see some things that don't match. For example, if it was a perfect meritocracy, usually companies in Latin America operate in a multi-carrier capacity, right? They don't lay all their eggs in one basket. They don't always partner up with only one delivery
Mhm,
provider. They most probably operate with different carriers, which I think is the right strategy to mitigate risk and everything. But
mhm,
ideally, you would gain more business with that client if you perform well, offer the best service, offer the best value. And
mhm,
sometimes that doesn't happen because there's maybe an inside man receiving some sort of benefit or money. So they have a leg up in that sense. And companies like 99minutos, which have a very strict no corruption policy, for example,
mhm.
we're not in a level playing field because we're playing against players who they're not afraid to do what's we consider one example. There's many. The way you obtain permits, both the quickness and the factibility of getting them is another one.
When everyone starts to demand faster delivery, but in Latin America, speed is not just a technology problem, and you pointed to that specific challenge. Sometimes it is a city problem, it is an infrastructure problem, it's a labor problem, or simply a trust problem. What's the hardest part of making things work in real life in Latin America?
Delivering anything, whether it's a freight a load or a small parcel, speed comes at a cost. Speed is a premium service, and that's not going to change anytime soon because to gain more speed, you need to invest into faster rotations, faster times, paying a little bit extra, and also charging a little bit extra. So in countries where cost pressure and budget pressures are still the number one priority because nobody likes paying a logistics bill, right? It's a needed thing for the operation, but nobody's excited about paying a logistics bill. And the lower it is, the better. So it's something that doesn't go hand in hand. It's impossible to have a super fast delivery at a super cheap price without either subsidizing or sacrificing efficiency or quality. So you usually have that triangle: quality, speed, cost. It's impossible to have the three of them all the time. I think that's the biggest challenge.
And where do you think the industry is evolving in that triage that you just described? Where do you think Latin America is moving towards?
Well, it's super interesting because I think in all the different verticals that we operate, that priority might shift a little bit. Because, for example, in the parcel business, speed is definitely a big element, but I think that we came at maybe a couple of years ago in which speed seemed like it was the most important when we have all this quick commerce boom for all the different companies investing in quick commerce. And then we
Mhm,
realized that maybe delivering in 10 minutes is not super important for everything, right? So we're shifting back to a 2 day, 3 day promise where people are okay with it. And obviously, a same day delivery is a great experience. If you're not willing to pay a premium for it, or the business that's offering you that is not willing to cost that out. The other thing is cost. There's definitely a cost pressure, but again, over the last few years, a lot of Asian companies have come into Latin America, investing, subsidizing, and a lot of business was lost because, let's say that the balance in the market was lost for a little bit in companies wanting to get very, very cheap deliveries, but then realizing that the quality was what they were sacrificing. So I think it's all shifting back to reliability. Like people or businesses are understanding that reliability and efficiency and quality is a lot more important for the long term. And so they're betting on companies that can meet that, obviously at a reasonable price. But I think that the fear of paying a premium has calmed down a little bit because they understand that if they're not reliable, then you lose business.
What you said is really interesting. In the last 36 months, we saw this avalanche of Asian cross-border e-commerce players, Shein, Temu. How did that impact local e-commerce? And what's happening right now in Latin America?
Well, my take on it is that we're getting used to them mostly. I think when they all came in like a tidal wave, it was crazy amounts of volume, discounts, and then maybe in the last couple of years, both legislation, taxing, operating, we've gotten accustomed to their ways a little bit as customers as well. I think people are learning what they can buy and what's worth buying in those platforms and what's not. And also the authorities trying to level playing field, right? Like local companies or local players have really struggled to keep up in some industries with these players, which we know are selling things under cost. So it's very interesting adoption in a segment which maybe wasn't adopting e-commerce at such a faster rate, because these companies usually sell to a different type of customer that the Amazons, Mercado Libres. So I think that accelerated that mid layer or low layer of the population, which was not yet buying on e-commerce regularly.
What were some of the negative side effects of that, especially for regional players like 99minutos or Mercado Libre or Falabella?
Fast fashion, for example, they've definitely seen a hit in their numbers, same as retailers or companies with huge capex infrastructure. They've seen a hit, that's no doubt. I don't know how much or how big. For the delivery companies or logistics companies, they came in with other players that were sometimes even partners in other parts of the world to operate their logistics infrastructure, right? So they're not giving their business to local players or local companies like us most of the time, or maybe they start out by giving you business then, and then shifting that business to a global partner like J&T or iMile or other companies that cost losses for a very long time, right? So that was a big shock to the logistics world. We saw at least 7 or 8 large companies disappear. Redback pretty much shut down their doors. Cargado, Ivoy, a lot of companies that used to hold or at least some decent share in the local market shut down because they simply couldn't handle the unpredictability of it.
When you look at the future of Latin America, for instance, do you believe logistics will become the engine that unlocks e-commerce growth or the bottleneck that limits it?
E-commerce, we can consider it to be a part because it can keep growing, and I think logistics can keep up with that growth. But the way we operate that logistics might change. There's still a lot of adoption pending from different delivery methods, for example, that we're simply not accustomed in Latin America and are super efficient, like we see in other parts of the world, like Puro networks and stuff like that, in which we can consolidate and deliver with a lot more efficiency. But it's also a cultural thing. We're not in any place in Latin America willing, or a large, more than 10% of parcels are not delivered in a pickup and drop off point or in a locker that we've seen over the years as an upcoming trend. We just don't see that adoption at a faster rate. So there's still a lot to explore, a lot of capacity that we can use to have a lot more e-commerce growth without becoming a bottleneck. I think the bottleneck might come in previous parts of the supply chain, like freight, pallets or trucks, or in the loading docks and stuff like that, because we're seeing a lot of bottlenecks in the customs clearance. We're seeing a lot of price pressure and offer limitation. There's a lack of 50,000 truck drivers just in Mexico, while the demand is increasing for freight services. It's a very interesting phenomenon because usually when there's higher demand than the offering, prices go up. But we don't see that in Latin America. Prices are still not going up at the same rate as gas prices or salaries or overall costs.
How do you think about scaling without breaking service quality or unit economics?
I think scaling without breaking quality is probably going to come in the form of working with companies like us, in which we are able to operate or manage or get that capacity and operate it efficiently at scale, having a good backbone to provide to the clients, right? Because what's really complex about a very fragmented market is that there's a lot of administrative costs and clerical costs linked to managing 20 truck drivers instead of one company that can handle all of them, right? So I think there's going to be some consolidation there. And the way to grow would be to partner with companies that can provide that scalability paired up with reliability, good cost, good technology. So that's the biggest bet that we have. And I think that market is going to go on that route. We already see it shifting. Most companies are willing to pay a little bit more to work with maybe a broker or a 3PL company like us that can help them reduce that friction to operate at scale or to grow more efficiently. In terms of price, that's where I don't see price going down anytime soon. I would expect big jumps in price in the next couple of years. And I think that's a healthy thing. Yes, that's definitely going to impact the end customer, or it's going to force us to sacrifice one of these triage elements that I mentioned, either quality, which hopefully doesn't deteriorate, or the actual timing of the deliveries.
Last one. What's your expectation for the second half of the year in terms of business? It's going to be a better year than 2025, same or worst when it comes to revenue expectations and the way that you are forecasting the rest of the year?
I'm a natural optimist. In logistics, particularly, I see a big upwards trend because I just see everything is lining up. Both the need for consolidation, the need for the services, nearshoring, super peso, some changes in political landscape that might come to benefit, for example, in Chile with a right-wing president, Colombia changing regime as well. For e-commerce, I would expect some deceleration. For freight services and everything that comes before the supply chain, I don't see that ramping down. I see it the other way, a potential uptrend there.
And from all the countries that you guys operate, which one is going to be the best in terms of revenue in 2026?
The best, Mexico is showing great signs of acceleration. I think there's a lot of, again, freight and everything with nearshoring. There's a lot of investment coming through. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of need, especially with the World Cup. So I think Mexico might be an outlier because there's a lot of good things happening for the industry, at least. Chile is always a great candidate, and it's also pretty stable overall in the region, other than their FX rate, which also is very variable.
Yeah.
But they were, at least out of the four countries we operate in, by far the most affected by the oil prices. We saw 30% gas price increase in a span of 2 or 3 days,
Yeah.
which we didn't see in Peru, we didn't see in Colombia or Mexico. And we haven't entered Argentina yet, but I'm very positive into what Argentina might become the next years. Argentina as a connector for the rest of the region.
Wonderful. Thank you, Santiago. I really appreciate the time. It was a great conversation.
Thank you, Diego. Always happy to meet, and hi to all the listeners out there. See you soon.
Thank you.